Even with nothing on, that I made you look. I made you look.
I don't get it. There's brave Iranians in Iran fighting for freedom. Today is the second day in the 3-day November protests that are going to be going on, in remembrance of what happened in 2019, sacrificing tremendous amounts and changing so much within the country. And what are we doing here? We're talking about misinformation. We're playing mind games with ourselves. We're thinking, oh, this piece of misinformation was Western control of the media, but then if you really think about it, the Western control of the media could be the fact that the Islamic regime doesn't want us to talk. This is not the time to talk about nuance. This is the time to talk about what's really going on in the country. It's great. So many of you want to come out of hiding about posting of Iran to post an infographic about misinformation when you haven't said anything about what's actually going on in the country, but you took this opportunity to really talk about misinformation because that's a super important topic for you and your page. I'm sorry, I'm not a yeller, I'm a crier, but I'm just shocked.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm feeling very tired today. My husband was getting the kids ready for daycare and he must have noticed how exhausted I looked. He said, the baby was up all night. I personally don't hear the baby at night. My ears simply aren't wired that way. You know who I did hear? My husband. Every time he woke up, which was a lot, by the way, it was cough, cough, cough. He must have some sort of cold. And I said, my goodness, can you be quieter? I have work in the morning. Anyway, Bethany and Jabroni, was it? James, of course. I'll get it. I think the issue is that it doesn't sound like a name to me. It sounds like a noise, but I'll get it. I will. Jabroni, at our last session, we discussed how you're a poor communicator. Have you tried to communicate with your wife more? Did you make her a list of tasks you would like for her to help with? How wonderful. I'm glad you were able to make the list. And Bethany, what do you think of the list? Were you able to review it? Okay. Jamarius, your expectations are too high. Joanna Man, have you tried lowering your expectations? Jafarius, for our next session, let's have you start a gratitude journal. The gratitude journal will be very calming for you. Put together a list of reasons why you're grateful for your wife. I think you'll start to see how much your wife truly does that you're not thankful for.
Book Talk, tell me that one author that no matter what they write, no matter what work they put out, you will always instantly buy. Here's mine.
Welcome to a series where I teach you Jewish vernacular you've probably been saying wrong. Shtick, not stick. This is not a stick in the mud. Shtick. L'chaim, okay? It's at the back of the throat. You hear that? Get in there. Schmuck, what a schmuck. He's a putz. He's an absolute putz. Chuppah, you hear that? Again, you gotta master that, okay? Otherwise, Jewish vernacular is not gonna come easy. Schwitzing. I was just schwitzing and I couldn't stop.
Did racism against white people become okay?
As Christopher Columbus. Shout out to all my indigenous people. Peace.
Oh, God.
No video on this app has enraged me like this one I'm about to show you of these tourists coming to see the real New York and then making fun of it while they were here.
We found this dodgy looking pizza joint and just had to try a New York slice, and when I tell you it was the best pizza ever, I am not lying. It's massive too, that's what she said. Then we went for a walk and went deeper into Brooklyn, and wow, there were 2 police officers at every intersection, people selling trees and other supplies and hairdressers and homeless people.
I'm doxing myself, but that's my fucking block. That's Brooklyn Pizza Crew, that's Trini Girl, that's the formerly Black Lady Theater that got shut down. I'm so mad. I saw the video of this woman, she stitched it. It was like slumming was a thing that people did in the 1800s, where they would go to neighborhoods of poor people and walk around and be like, ooh, look at this little zoo of the poor. But it's weird to watch the video and go, I feel like I know that, and knowing that that's like a 2-minute walk away from me. I'm not originally from New York, you know, I moved here from Louisiana. I've been living in Crown Heights for like 5 years now. I never want to leave Crown Heights. Come to love this place a lot. Don't fucking disrespect it. Don't fucking disrespect it like that. Man, I this isn't even like a video with any commentary. I'm just mad to watch someone treat my neighborhood and my block like a zoo.
Hey, did you know we used to have a maximum wage in the United States? Because I just learned about it and I need everyone to be as hunted by this information as I am. It was started during World War II under FDR, and guess who ended it? Reagan! Of course it was Reagan! Anyways, it wasn't a formal income limit, it was a progressive tax structure. The idea of a progressive tax rate is certainly not new. In 1880, it was proposed by Felix Adler. Adler proposed that once your income reaches such an extent that you have a sum of money that gives you all of the refinements and comforts that you could possibly need, you don't get any more money. So in 1942, after Pearl Harbor, FDR proposed Adler's 100% top tax rate, which would ostensibly cap income at $25,000, which in 2022 dollars is about $375,000 a year. So more than enough money. And it was incredibly popular, bipartisanly. By 1944, anyone in the US making more than $200,000 a year faced a 94% tax. And our top tax rate would hover around 90% for the next 2 decades. As a result, the US had the biggest and healthiest middle class in any country in the world. By 1970, the top 1% of income earners earned only about 1/10 of the income in the US. Do you want to know what percentage of national income the 1% earns in 2022? It's 32.3%. So the super wealthy in the US are astronomically wealthier than they were in 1970, whereas average take home for the typical American worker has stagnated since 1970, while the cost of living, housing, and education has skyrocketed. Tax the rich, no one needs that much money, trickle-down economics doesn't work, and as always, this is a Ronald Reagan slander account, thank you. I also need it to be known that this policy, as well as other progressive economic and social policies, were axed right around the time that Black people, Indigenous people, other people of color, and women started getting rights, and that's not a coincidence.
In Iran, it's against the law to execute a virgin girl. So the Iranian government are forcing female protesters to marry prison guards so they can be raped and therefore executed. And your government stays silent. Help us raise money and awareness by supporting this fundraiser. We've had enough of our government staying silent.
I'm very sorry and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not giving up. And I'm swerving in the streets, got you nervous that
I have a cheese stick pocket on my skirt. Cheese sticks! Day in the life of an autistic woman.
What literally annoys me about everything that you said is that you're just giving off more and more proof that you literally are not artistic. Most people who are autistic have a hard time even responding to people, and just because you have ADHD doesn't mean you're autistic. And if it does, that just means you're on the very, very, very small part of that. Because, I don't know, I'm not going to see ADHD or whatever you have as a form of autism because you can speak normally, you can complete sentences completely fine and everything under the sun. I just don't see it as autism or anything else.
Edible crystals. Conservatives have always been deeply homophobic, but what they've been doing with trans people in the last few years is no less than systematic eradication. The UN defines the G word as having 2 elements. The first is a mental element, which is the intent to destroy whole or in part an oppressed group. The second is a physical element, such as causing the death of, causing harm to, reducing the quality of life for, or separating the families of the oppressed group. Trans people threaten the white patriarchy, and thus conservatives are trying to get rid of them through rhetoric, social pressure, and legislation under the guise of transness being a mental disorder. Conservatives would never admit that eradication is their end goal, but when has any group who's ever committed this act admitted to it? This looks great.
This is one major difference I've noticed between Black Southern households and Ashkenazi Jewish households. Hi, my name is Raven. I'm Black and Jewish, and I educate on diversity in the Jewish community. In Black Southern households, deference is super important. And by deference, I mean showing respect to your elders. This can take many forms, but in my house, it took the form of responding to my elders as yes ma'am, yes sir, which might seem overly formal to some people, but that's just kind of like a sign of respect. In Ashkenazi Jewish spaces, I've noticed it's much more encouraged for children to be more like tongue-in-cheek. In other words, like it's rewarded when kids kind of like talk back or speak their minds or insert themselves in a way that might be seen as disrespectful in a Black Southern context. Obviously, this is not going to be the experience of every single Ashkenazi household. This is my personal experience, but I find it fascinating how Judaism encouraging us to question intimately is reflected in the way that we raise our kids.
Have you ever been in a situation where somebody says something that's like casually racist and you don't know what to do?
Oh, hell no.
I get that. I feel you. Your friendly brown Muslim girl's here to help. This is Solidarity 101 by Yasmin Abdul-Majid. Number 1, if you've ever thought, should I say something? It probably means you should say something. If it's uncomfortable for you, imagine how uncomfortable it is for the person who's being offended. Number 2, if people are laughing at a joke that's racist, be like, wait, so why is that funny?
Why is that funny?
Make it awkward AF.
Ooh, awkward.
Number 3, someone says,
I don't mean for this to sound racist.
Look, I'm not racist, but
you know it's gonna be racist. You can say, hey, it sounds like you're gonna say something racist. Maybe don't. It's so simple. Here's the thing. It's like a little bit uncomfortable. It's a little bit awkward, but you know what? It makes the world a better place.
We love each other.
4, when people fall back on stereotypes like,
that place is really ghetto, you should be careful. Oh, so you're Muslim? Does your dad let you leave the house then?
You're not like the rest of them, you know what I mean?
dude, ask them, what are the rest of them like? Where did you get those statistics from? 5, don't assume the friend who's copying it actually has the energy or capacity to say anything or defend themselves, because we do it every day.
Yo, I'm tired. I'm so over this.
But remember, you're not speaking on behalf of them. So check in. Are you
Excuse me, are you okay?
6, if someone makes a casually racist comment to a friend of yours,
you'd be so much prettier without all that stuff covering your hair. Your English is so good. But you don't like maths. Aren't you Asian?
Make it personal. Ask them, would they be okay with somebody saying,
wow, you're just so smart for a white girl. Where are your parents from?
Number 7, allyship is not something that you just flick on and off when you have a brown friend or a black friend or a female friend around. Remember to do it all the time. Remember to do it when it's uncomfortable.
That's inappropriate.
I actually find that offensive.
And there is no neutral. If you say something or if you don't say something, either one is a choice. And so your choice really matters. It means more than you think. Terrible things happen when good people do nothing. And you know what's hot? When someone stands up for me. It is a babying thing, because you're like, oh, damn, he woke.
There's been a thought stuck in my head for a while, and I need you guys to stick with me as I get it out. Obviously, no hate to the original video. Like, this isn't a hate video, but I feel like some people are gonna skew it that way. I've been thinking about for like months now how more and more we are being asked to ignore our values and ignore the things we know are true just so that we can enjoy living. So we'll know that something is bad. We'll know that a person is bad, but we'll still engage with their art and still participate in that system just for a little bit, just so we can have the joy that we have. But why is that the case? Like, in this system that we have, anti-intellectualism is so bad that it's literally convincing people to not critique things, because if they critique it and look too far into it, then they'll realize that it's a bad thing, and we're supposed to enjoy things, right? My question is, where's that impulse coming from? Like, you and I know logically that we can enjoy the Christmas season without buying things, right? But the easiest way to do it is to consume, you know? We can know that an artist is bad, that they've done like objectively bad things, but you can ignore that for 3 minutes so you can listen to their song. I don't know. I just think we should pay attention to this impulse that we get to just ignore the bad things for a few minutes, you know? Because at a certain point, if you start ignoring your values, they're no longer your values. That's just who you are. I'll hop off my soapbox.
I gotta push back against some takes I've been seeing, and I know a lot of liberals follow me, and that's good. You're here to learn and help out the movement, and I love you for that. But there is no moving the Democrats left. That's not happening. Not when the trends are indicating that they are moving to the right of their own volition. Even with Biden being unironically the most progressive president that we've had in decades. And that's not a compliment. Yeah, we can get socialists and progressives running under the Democratic ticket. That's good. They exist to fight back against anti-protest laws, to protect marginalized rights, and to platform leftist ideas to energize newer comrades. We need that. But the Democratic Party as a whole is still the enemy. They don't have the solutions you're looking for. I'm also seeing people float the idea that we could get people like us, who talk like people in the red states, to run under the Republican ticket. Now I want to be clear here. Not only are we unable to rehab the GOP, not only does it not want to be rehabbed, but it must not be rehabbed. If we want the best revolutionary outcome, the GOP must implode for Democratic voters to recognize that the Democratic Party doesn't work for us either. Democrats have been funding fascist candidates so that they win their primaries and then Democrats can then win the elections. They've been moving their constituency further to the right than Republicans can compensate for. But they still want a viable GOP because that is what legitimizes the Democratic Party. Now, with the material conditions already set for a fascistic uprising, this strategy can only go on for so long, because as the GOP attempts to rein in their constituency, they'll lose the votes necessary to be politically viable, which means that fascists will no longer have a vehicle to institutional power, at which point Democrats are left wide open holding the bag. When I talk about electoral strategy, when I tell you guys to vote Dem, I'm talking about setting the chessboard for a proper revolution. I'm asking you to ride the waves of existing trends towards increasing instability so that we can engage with favorable odds. And this is why our symbol is the bullet train, because we need to act fast and in a unified fashion. Because eventually, Republicans are going to find a way to restructure themselves. They're more politically effective than Democrats are. At which point, we're going to have to contend with the corporate duopoly all over again. If you're a leftist, we want this Democratic strategy to backfire so that it kneecaps the GOP and leaves the Democrats uncontested as an objectively easier enemy to face off against. We ran through the facts in this in a previous video. Think about our situation like a horse and buggy race. You have the Democrats and Republicans, the constituency of their horses, and there's no finish line in sight. Now, some of us in the audience recognize that it's rigged, but the vast majority of us don't, because it's all a show and they got us wearing their color. Now, they take turns taking the lead, and that works for a little bit, but then the Democratic horses are starting to get tired and they fall behind a little bit. And this is when the Democrats have the idea that if they replace the Republican horses with wild ones, they can maintain a stronger lead and get more cheers. But they were overconfident in their opponent's ability to regain control of their horses, and they veered off the path, leaving the Democratic wagon alone in the race. At which point, the entire audience recognizes that there was no finish line, this was all a distraction the whole time, and we vault over the stand. Now, this analogy doesn't account for the pre-existing fascistic element in America, but it's supposed to help you understand the point of view of the majority of the audience and how we can use this momentum to our advantage.
Heteronormativity is a sickness that we must eradicate. Love your friends. Marry your friends. Invest in property and move in with your friends. Raise children with your friends. There is too much emphasis on romantic partnerships and not enough emphasis on the platonic ones. We are losing our ability to build and maintain communities and villages with people other than our romantic partners. There's too much emphasis on building romantic partnerships with men and not enough emphasis on building partnerships in general. We have to change the way that we view relationships with other people. And we have to change the way that we build and maintain relationships with other people. Because what we've got going on right now, it's not working.
Are humans inherently selfish or cooperative? No, it's a false dichotomy based on essentialism that's used by exploitative people to justify their domination, when the real problem systems of OPPRation. You see, most people want a stable life and community, but some jerks think, how can I get more power for me? So make up myths like laziness, progress, and human nature, to pretend they deserve a better life than you. And the rich white Western men who disproportionately benefit from the hierarchies justified by all these myths use their power to convince people with zero evidence to believe in white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and imperialism. So what to do to build a future with resilience? We can start by dispelling all these hierarchical myths. When you make sense of the world, consider it among these systems. And remember, individualism is a mistake based on self-actualization, which Maslow got wrong and conceded later in life, so you should also consider things like this.
Dear white people, it is very important to people of color for you all to pronounce our names correctly.
There's no reason as to why you should abbreviate our name, make it shorter just so you can understand it. Because if that name is not on my birth certificate, then don't call me that. Of course, unless told otherwise. In addition to that, if you do not know how to pronounce or speak a person of color's names, just go up to them and ask them, how do you pronounce it? Literally just say, excuse me, your name is kind of difficult for me to pronounce. If it's okay with you, would you mind speaking it for me? And that not only shows that you actually want to know their names, but it shows that you respect their name and the culture behind it. Remember, it's the little things that make a huge difference.
If you've existed on the internet over the past week, you probably know that there are fears circulating of a government-sanctioned mass rape of women in Iran. Currently, there's about 14 or 15,000 people who have been arrested for protesting, and Iran's parliament recently voted saying that the courts are allowed to sentence those people to death. Where this has the potential to get particularly gruesome for women is that the regime is often hesitant to execute women who are virgins. Sometimes, historically, they have married them to prison guards the night before their execution, had them raped, and then killed them the next day. When the parliament voted to allow execution, they obviously got a ton of backlash, and spokespeople quickly tried to backtrack, saying that the Western media was misconstruing the law. But with hundreds of protesters already having been killed and one person already officially sentenced to death, we need to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The regime is currently suppressing media and internet in the country, so while it's hard to know exactly what's going on the ground, we have to keep putting international pressure on the regime to stop its human rights violations.
This is why I've stopped calling race a social construct, and I cannot wait to share this with you because I had a light bulb moment and I was like, ooh, okay. So basically, race exists because of white colonizers. So it exists because of colonialism. Therefore, one would think we would call it a colonial construct. What I mean by this is without colonialism, without slavery, without these forms of white supremacist violence against Black, brown, Asian, and indigenous people, there would be no such thing as race. That wouldn't exist. Typically, when something wouldn't exist because of a thing, you would label the thing in the name of that thing. You know what I mean? Like, if race wouldn't exist without colonialism, shouldn't we call it a colonial construct? And yet it's called a social construct, which implies it wouldn't exist without society. But that's like language wouldn't exist without society. For me, race and gender, as specifically colonially imposed constructs, it is an erasure. It is a form of white supremacy to actually call them social constructs. Why? Because we know that one of the ways that white supremacy upholds itself is to adopt a certain universality, a neutrality. We are people. We don't have to say we're white people. We're just people. I don't have to say a white singer. It's just a singer. I don't have to say a Western university. It's just a university. So this is this universality of whiteness, okay? And that is embedded, breathing, living in the concept that race is a social construct, because it also implies that there were other societies that might adopt race as a social construct. Why? Because it's a social construct, and isn't this a society? So maybe you have race as a social construct. No. Only a colonial society would have race in the way it's defined for us today. The other reason why I think this is really important is the only way to end a social construct is to have a new kind of society. But the only way to end a colonial construct is to have an anti-colonial society. And so in this way, we see what white supremacy does to conceal itself from the truth by having this privileged access to being able to label things and name things and name it in its own self-interest. I speak about this all the time, the way that language embeds, conceals, locks in, normalizes, validates, reinforces forms of white supremacy, always obfuscating them, hiding them from our view, so that even as we use language to try oppose these systems, we find in that language the very same system that we are trying to oppose. Okay, I'm done.
5 reasons that you're codependent. 10 reasons as to why you should break up with your partner. 5 red flags that tell you that you're in an unhealthy relationship. 6 reasons as to why you are traumatized. Honestly, I am sick and tired of all the pop psychology type posts that have become the face of mental health online. There is no way that somebody could potentially tell you what is good for you who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your life, simply because they took a bunch of generalizations and then attached it to a video, spoke directly into the camera, into your soul, and told you why you are the way that you are. This type of content weaponizes the fact that people don't have adequate mental health support, that folks are feeling lonely. Adequate mental health support and actual tangible material resources cannot be replaced with these pseudo Instagram pop psychology posts where they're actually selling you a brand through their content and making you feel like this message is personally for you.